Hello, this is the Module 9 copyright assignment, the instructor presentation over my lesson for the Assure model over copyright. So the Assure model is 6 steps. A is analyze learner characteristics. S is state objectives. S, select, modify, and design materials. U, utilize those materials. R, require learner response. And E, evaluation. So A, for Analyze Learner Characteristics, this lesson for copyright is for 6th grade students. It is students of various knowledge levels, but the students are all frequent technology users. So the students are going to range from students familiar with copyright to students who have never heard of the term, so it's a wide knowledge. Differentiation is for the gifted students. There are opportunities for them to expand their thinking based on written responses. It's going to be open-ended questions, which allows for students to respond at their own level. The learning preferences, students are going to be able to choose the questions by recording a video or typing the answers on a Google Docs, and both of those options will be uploaded on Google Classroom. S, state objectives. The objective that will be read to the students is the objective of today's lessons will be for students to successfully answer 5 open-ended questions about copyright. Students should be able to know what copyright is, what is protected under copyright, and how long copyright is in place for. S, select, modify, or design materials. The lesson delivery, this lesson is going to be a lecture-style teaching where the students are presented open-ended questions at the end of the lecture. That's where they will upload those answers on Google Classroom. Students are going to be able to ask questions after the presentation is over, and while they're answering these questions, they will have access to the lecture slides, all on Google Classroom. And technology, students are going to use their own Chromebooks and Google Classroom. U, utilize materials. So the steps that are going to be used to run this lesson are step 1, read the learning objective from the lesson. Step 2, present the lecture teaching students about copyright. Step 3, allow time for students to ask questions. Step 4, show students the 5 open-ended questions on Google Classroom. Present options for student responses. They can do a video response or written response on Google Docs. And step 5 is teacher will utilize rubric to assess students' learning and reteach anything that is needed. R, requires learner response. So students will engage in turn and talks during the lecture. After the lecture, they'll have the opportunity to ask questions. Finally, they'll respond to open-ended questions on Google Classroom. The 5 questions that they will be answering is 1, name 2 things that can be protected by copyright. 2, how long does copyright law protection apply to an original creation? 3, what is the fair use doctrine? 4, what is one rule to remember about copyright? And the last question, question 5, is why is copyright important? Again, they will have access to the lecture slides while answering these questions. And finally, E, evaluation. This is the rubric that is created. So the students can be scored exemplary, meets expectations, or approaching expectations. At the bottom, there's a scale. If they get exemplary on all 5, they'll get 100. If they get 40 to 49 points, they get a 95. 30 to 39 points, 90. 26 to 29 points, 85. And if they get 25 points, which means they're approaching expectations on every single question, they'll get a 70, and they need to have a reteach moment. So for example, question 1, they're exemplary if the student listed 2 or more things that are protected by copyright. They meet expectation if they listed 1 thing that's protected by copyright, and they're approaching expectations if they did not list something that's protected by copyright. Question 2, to get all 10 points, the student will answer that it is 70 years after the creator's death. If they're meeting expectation, the student answered a number besides 70 years after the creator's death, and if they're approaching, they did not give an answer. Question 3, if they get all 10 points, the student has understanding of what the fair use doctrine is. If they're meeting expectations, the student has some understanding of what the doctrine is. And if they're approaching, it means they have little to no understanding of what the fair use doctrine is. Question 4, to get all 10 points, they will list one or more rules to remember from the presentation about copyright. The presentation gives 3 examples. Question 4, to get 7 points, they listed one partial rule to remember from the presentation. And approaching, they listed no rules to remember from the presentation, or they made up their own rule. That does not apply. And finally, question 5, to get all 10 points, the student displays full understanding why copyright is important. To get 7, they're meeting expectation, they display some understanding. And to get approaching, they display no understanding why copyright is important. Again, here are the 5